Today, we'll be working with Venetian plaster and mosaic tiles, and we'll show you how you can turn your Padova into a spectacular centerpiece for your kitchen designs. This is a new approach to working with an appliance. So using plaster, for example, there are multiple types of plaster. We're using Venetian plaster because that's the most decorative, it's very easy to apply, it's readily available. This simple process just requires a few coats of plaster and some sealer and wax. Choosing your color for the plaster is simple as choosing color for paint. You just take the color of your choice, go to your home center, and they'll put that color into the plaster. After that process, you take pre-made mosaics, that's what we're going to do here, or you can take mosaics and make them yourself, taking whatever material of your choice and nipping them and placing them and having a great deal of fun. The tools you'll need to complete this process can be found at any home center. A spatula, common nippers, brushes, rubber float. It really makes it very simple. There are a wide variety of Venetian plasters available at your home center, so I would recommend looking at the manufacturer's instructions and following those specifically. Whether you have a professional help you and assist you in applying the plaster, or you decide to do it yourself, which is a lot of fun, I recommend that you take a piece of scrap sheetrock or masonite and practice a few times to get the hang of it. That way, when you apply it on the hood itself, on the panels that we provide, it'll be a piece of cake. My #1 recommendation while you work with this plaster is to keep everything clean, clean, clean. As Tom says, this isn't spackle, so keep the edges of the panels clean as you work. So here's your blank canvas. This is the Padova, and you can see that there are compartments here, really, and there are 6 panels that go in each compartment, 2 small and 4 large. So here's a panel, and you can see that it's easily removable. There's some wing nuts here. They simply slip in and go back in. So we'll take these panels and we're going to plaster them. It'll be a very fun and simple process. Our next step is to make sure that the panels are absolutely clean. So it's as simple as taking a wet rag with some water and going over them, let it dry, and then we'll move on to the next step. In some cases, you may have to use a medium grit emery cloth or something similar to get those burrs down. Any elevation at the edge that's not sanded down will cause a little dip and you'll have to fill, which is much more difficult. Now we'll prime the surface with an acrylic paint primer formulated to adhere to metal. This creates a good surface for the plaster, and you'll want to allow 1.5 hours to let it dry. When you work with Venetian plasters, it's a very thin application, and there's a certain amount of practice you need to keep that thinness and that evenness that some people may not be used to, thinking that plaster would be a buildup of many layers and a lot thicker. But this is has fine marble dust in it, and what you want to do is get it thin enough so that you're working out the color and that it comes up from beneath the surface, and that's what gives it its life. Apply a thin coat of plaster as thinly as possible across the entire surface using a flexible stainless steel trowel. Remember, too thick a coat could cause the dried plaster to shrink or crack. This is not good, so take a couple of minutes in between each coat, keep them thin, and don't forget to clean off any extra plaster on the edges. Keep your blades really clean. Now we're going to sand between coats. See how some high and low spots start to appear? We want to smooth these out so that they don't build up with subsequent coats and then cause problems. So if you have any build-up material, sand smooth. You'll want to apply a couple more coats, as many as you like to get the color depth you want, but always in very thin layers and smoothly until the complete surface is covered with the desired color. And make sure no metal is showing anywhere. After each coat, if you have any built-up material, again, sand it smooth, and always clean off your edges while the plaster is still wet. Now we're going to apply the final coat as smoothly as possible in small amounts, very thinly, and as evenly as possible because it's hard to correct any imperfections at this stage. After it is dry, you'll sand it with very fine sandpapers, starting with 600 grit or 800 grit, and then going finer until your final desired sheen is achieved. Remember now, this final sanding is not intended to correct anything or smooth any imperfections. It is only intended to polish an already smooth surface. So start slowly and check that you do not leave swirls from the sandpaper. Now we apply an acrylic sealer evenly with a clean, soft cloth. Just don't let the sealer drip or streak. And after it dries, we're ready for the paste wax and buffing. You can polish it to get as much sheen as you want, or just polish it a little for a more natural finish. Wow, Tom, good job. Look at this. It's that subtle Venetian plaster finish. You can see these little subtleties in the surface. That's what we're looking for. The 4 panels are done and we'll be ready for tiling. The only thing you really have to be cognizant of is to use mosaics of the same thickness so that you aren't having different levels with the mosaic, and they have to be at least about 3/8 of an inch or less in thickness, so they don't protrude from the rim of the piece. You can take your own tile, like I've just done, and insert. And here's an example, much like you'd see at Sagrada Familia, the Barcelona Cathedral by Gaudi. A lot of broken dishes, tile, and you're taking and recycling material and having a lot of fun doing your own composition. You want to vary the sizes and the rhythm of the mosaic pieces to avoid repetitive patterns. Try not to leave large gaps, otherwise you'll have too much grout showing in the end. Once you're ready, apply the adhesive and begin laying the tile. Use just enough so that the pieces will adhere, but be careful not to squish the glue above the surface of the tile. When the glue is dry, it's time to grout, but make sure all the tiles have completely adhered to the surface of the canopy. I recommend grouting after placing the panels into the hood so that the grout can fill the crack between the panel and the canopy. To make grout, add a small quantity of water a little at a time and blend till it's a soft consistency, like toothpaste. Next, we spread the grout into the gaps with a small plastic trowel. Do small areas at a time and carefully push it into all the crevices, lightly scraping off any excess. Use a rubber grout float and work it at an angle across the face of the tiles to make the edges nice and clean. After you're finished, let the grout dry and then clean off any excess with a damp sponge. Remember, don't leave any grout residue on the tiles. Wipe off the excess with a damp sponge, and then after the grout dries, buff the tiles to remove any haze. Now it's time to place the finished panels into your hood frame, but be extra careful when you insert the panels. You wouldn't want to chip the plaster edges after all your hard work. Remember that the Padova is designed to accept more than just plaster and tile. Here are some examples of what can be done with materials like copper and stainless steel. These finishes are available through your Zephyr dealer. Well, here we have it. I'm putting in the last panel, and it should go in, fit into the holes. It's aligned, drops right in, sets tight. Voila! Look at how beautiful this looks. And notice that contrast between that slick Venetian plaster and the rather earthiness you have in the mosaic tiles. So I hope you have success in your endeavors to try out the Padova for a very artful, wonderful kitchen.